Hello, good morning, my Facebook friends. I am Michelle, and I am your host for the Monday Coffee Talk. I'm a transition life coach, and I have this Monday Coffee Talk where I invite speakers and influencers from all over the world to come onto the show and share their inspirational story. And today, I have a very special guest. He's an author of a book that was just published a month and 3 days ago. Anthony Vaughn. He is the author of Combining Dark with Light. Anthony had a really, really interesting journey.
That's one way to put it.
Do you like me using the word interesting?
Interesting is definitely a word to be used.
But I don't think interesting really sums up the journey that he's been gone through since he was born to the point where he is now. He was living from places, city to city. You were living in Michigan, or born in Michigan, went to Florida, came to California, and you were traveling from family to family, and you were living with your grandparents for a while. Anthony has a really compelling story, and it's a very inspirational one. So I would like to bring him on so that he can share his own journey with you. So welcome, Anthony Vaughn.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what is it that you do?
Yeah, the name of the book is Balancing Dark with Light. And I was born in a place called Waukegan, Illinois, and I was raised in Gary, Indiana. I'm a 30-year-old male. I've traveled the world, and I've gone through my fair share of struggles. I have all the battle wounds to show for it. And I'm just someone who wants to share this story with as many people as possible in hopes that people are able to actually, be inspired themselves to really overcome a lot of the different traumas and pains that I know that I've had, and I know that I'm still working through as we speak right now. So I'm just happy to be here and share that with as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. So I remember reading your book, and in the beginning of the chapters, you were describing your early childhood, and your mom had you when she was 14. Is that correct?
16. She lost her mother when she was 14 years old. And when she lost her mother, before then, even my grandfather was alcoholic. So it wasn't easy for her to live there. Her older sisters had already moved out, and my uncle had gone to the military. So at 16 years old is when she had me. And not too long after that, she met my stepfather. Where I have another 6 siblings from, as a matter of fact. I'm the oldest of 11, 3 of which I didn't meet until I was 22 years of age. So growing up, because my parents, they were on drugs themselves. So it was a challenge for me just growing up and writing about it, and now being able to talk about it is something that I really encourage as many people to do as possible, because it's helped me to be able to overcome. But the reason that I wrote this book was because I had to have a lot of responsibility starting from a young age. Like at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age, I had to change diapers. I had to make bottles. I had to get children ready for school. I had to give children baths, and I was a child myself. So I missed out. Actually, I missed out on a lot of childhood things. And the place that I grew up in was, the murder capital of the United States, time and time, year in and year out, as a matter of fact. I mean, I saw my first dead body when I was in the 3rd grade. It was from violence, of course. The places that I lived, one of the places I lived was the actual name was Fillmore Street, named after the president. But because it was so bad, it was nicknamed Killmore Street. And all of these different things I just tell in more detail in the book, so that people can actually get a feel for kind of who I am and And it even goes into detail about the things that were going on inside the household where I was whenever my parents would be, high on drugs and things like that. And the good news is that, my parents are people who I credit to, helping me to be where I am right now. So it's okay for people to feel however they feel, but I know that I've dealt with, those pains and those traumas and those resentments. And, I've forgiven myself, and I've also forgiven my parents. So I'm hoping that, this will be a healing process, not just for me, but for anybody who gets involved. Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like to live in a environment where it's full of violence and full of, you're surrounded by drug abuse and also gangsters? Like, what was it like? Because you were only, what, 11,
I was
13
a
years
kid.
old? Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, it's the place where I grew up, So because of that very reason, it was like home. It was normal. It was something that you just got up and did on a daily basis. You got up and you walk through gangbangers as you walking down the street to school, and you go to school, and you know, at that time I was making straight A's at the time, and for me, I didn't really get caught up in what was going on. I was like straight to school and back, like that was my life, straight to school and back, which was it's kind of boring, but it was just how my life was. It's just how my life was.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's so interesting now how you brought up how you use the word normal to describe it, because I wrote a book and it's called Perfectly Normal, right?
mm-hmm.
And the reason I chose that title was because a lot of our perception makes us think that certain things are just normal. And for you, as a kid, you look around you, there's drug abuse, there's violence, there's gun shooting, there's people dying on the street, and you see the dead body at 13 years old, and you're thinking that it's normal. But
right.
when in fact, when someone else outside of the community, outside of the society, looking at that whole picture, there's nothing normal about it.
Right.
So,
and think about it this way. There's many people who grew up the same way that I did, probably even worse than I did in a lot of cases. And, they and all of us, had to find a way to deal with it. All of us had to deal with the life that we had in front of us. And people outside looking in can always, I think now, because of this book that has been written, they can see like a firsthand explanation about how it was to grow up in a place like that, to grow up, with food stamps, to grow up, having to go to school after you was up all night because, your parents, were doing whatever they were doing, or because it was too many gunshots at nighttime. You couldn't really get any rests, but you still had to get up and go to school and do what you had to do. And live your life like a normal kid. Like that's not just me. That's just many different people. And I'm just someone who was able to have the opportunity to write a book about it, and hopefully in enough detail to where people can see, like, there's things that need to be done. I really want some light to be shown on where I'm from, because it's still not the best place, because we don't have the finances necessary. Even though we have a lot of really good people there, there's still not enough. We still have a lot to improve on. So that's one of my main reasons, is to shed light on where I'm from and to eventually go back and help build it up as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the thing that caught me in terms of what you were just saying is the light. What does that word, and it's also in the title of your book. So what does the word light mean to you?
So the word light is a way to be healed. It's the way to be healed from the darkness. But think of it this way. You wouldn't be able to have any light without any darkness. There would be no such thing as light if there wasn't any darkness. So just like you can have yang without the yin, you can have light without the dark. And that's why the name of the book is called Balancing Dark with Light, because you have to offset all the pains and traumas that we have inside of ourselves with that light, because it's not enough light being shown on those areas, because a lot of us, rightfully so, are extremely afraid to deal with the darkness that we have inside of ourselves. But the good news is that there is people doing it on a regular basis, and we just don't see it. As a matter of fact, as a whole, we see a lot of the darkness coming to the light right now. If we really pay attention to what's going on in politics and in other parts of the world, we see a lot of the darkness coming to the light, and it's all being balanced out. But it's painful, as we all are going through ourselves on a macro scale. It's painful to go through all of this darkness, and also on just a micro scale, just within oneself, going through it will be very challenging, even as challenging, probably more challenging than the macro scale, as a matter of fact, because what's within is without. So all of us are going through this at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you actually combine the darkness with the light, because a lot of us, think that, well, I just want to see something that's very happy, very joyful, but, I don't want to deal with what's painful, and, we're avoiding, right? We're avoiding what is painful, what is not pleasant. And so we keep pushing it back and we're pushing it out. But in order to really enjoy the happiness and knowing, what the joy look like, we have to know what, unpleasantness and, sometimes a little bit of pain and suffering. So in order to tell the difference and how to differentiate them.
Right.
In terms of, if you were to give someone a good advice, like there's someone who's going through the same journey as you were when you were 13, when you were still a child, what advice would you give that person?
Just keep living, just keep moving forward. Every one of us have our own particular story. And I can't discredit the person who has some type of pain because, their parent had to work too much or things like that. But just keep living. That's the only thing I can say. Just keep living. Don't give up. Always know that there's going to be something better, even if you can't see it. Like, know that there's something better, whatever that may be. If you have no idea what that is, have some type of faith. And that right there will help you to get through everything and anything, as a matter of fact. That's the advice that I would give to my 13-year-old self, is to, because I was suffered from a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I didn't even want to look at anything that I was going through. So that means that I didn't have faith in something better. That means that eventually I got to a point to where I was just down on myself. And, I was somebody who didn't have much confidence growing up, as a matter of fact. Like, anybody who I grew up with, wouldn't be able to recognize me as I am right now, because I was always to myself. I didn't really share. This book is completely outside of my comfort zone. But because I was able to continuously reflect on my life through a meditation practice that I did. People have other different forms to do whatever they need to do, but this meditation practice just had me continuously reflect on myself, literally thousands of times, literally thousands of times. So writing this book was just another step in that process, and now putting it out to other people to read and see all of my dirty laundry and see how I was able to actually, kind of transmute that energy and, make it into something that hopefully will be inspiring to others, is something that I'm really happy and I'm really proud of, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of you too, because, in order to be able to freely express yourself to the public, whether it's a book, an interview, or anywhere that we're sharing our story with, it really requires us to be really vulnerable. And, vulnerability is something that it's very rare for a lot of people. And so I can totally, I think it's amazing that how you're being able to put yourself into the book and really, really, truly describing, what it was like to be living in a family where it's full of violence, in an environment where it's full of violence and drug abuse, alcoholism, and also you're just moving from places to places. There's really not a specific home. And having such a big family of 11 siblings.
Yeah, that's a lot.
The eldest, It was not easy. It was definitely not an easy journey, and to be able to share that freely to everyone, to inspire someone, that's really has its power and it's powerful. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge your courage for doing that, and it's a rare gift that the society needs more people like you, to be able to share their story to inspire others. If you were to think back on your journey, one particular person or someone that you look up to who kind of was there standing by your side and say, you know, Anthony, we got this. Let's do this together. Was there someone like that?
It's tough. I know. First person comes to mind will be my uncle. He's a 22-year military veteran, and he's a person that I moved with when I was 19 years old, as a matter of fact. He was a military vet, so he had a lot of discipline. I was from a very chaotic situation, so naturally we bumped heads. There was no way. A whole bunch. A whole bunch. He always knew what was best, and I always knew what was best. But the fact is that I didn't know what was going on, and he did the best he could, given the circumstances that he had experienced in his life. So it was that would be somebody, and you know, just the founder of the meditation that I did. I'm really appreciative to this person because, you know, without me being able to reflect on myself and things like that, I would have never been able to write this book. Actually, I would have never been able to appreciate my uncle like I do right now, because I really didn't have any true appreciation for my uncle at that time, or even later on, as a matter of fact, because I was so caught up in my own little world. But being able to kind of break free from that allowed me to be able to say thank you, not just to him, but to any and everybody who I've ever come across, because they've all been a big part of my growth, a big part of my movement forward. So my mom, my dad, my grandfather, my stepfather, like I didn't even meet my biological father until I was 22. And I met my other three siblings at that time, which I'm here visiting my brother from my dad right now in San Francisco, because I've been traveling, and spreading the word about this book from LA, where I'm from, to San Diego, where my aunt is on my mom's side, and now I'm here in San Francisco. So it's a journey that I'm partaking in as with an entrepreneurial spirit.
I love it. I love it. And all these people along the way of your journey and my journey too. I think in the beginning of my book, you know, I dedicated to a lot of people along the way, whether it's good or bad, you know, no matter what kind of experience they brought us, you know, it was really important to be part of us, and this is who we are today, and it shaped us, helping us to be where we are today. So I love how you said, you know, your uncle, your family, and your friends, and everybody. You just wanted to
everybody.
Say,
everybody who I've ever come across within these 34 years. Thank you. You too, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be part of your journey on this early stage, right? This is like
the very early stage.
Yeah, yes. The book. Well, I hope you come back, you know, to my show like a couple of months down the road when you're like on big television, and you'll remember. Oh yeah, I remember Michelle. Michelle, you know, gave me an opportunity to be on her Facebook Live.
Right. And it was an opportunity that I appreciated so much, because I knew that it was going to allow me to be able to share something that I really deeply care about. So, yes, I'm going to remember the whole process, and maybe it'll be good for book number 2.
It will be book number 2.
Yeah, journey continues.
Right? You're going to say something about me.
The journey continues.
Yes, the journey to be continued. Anthony, if you were to describe your future in just 3 words, I know you're a writer, you're an author, and, you know, been there, done that, and I know you can write, but if you were to just describe it with 3 words, what are those 3 words?
Lost and found.
Wow.
Lost and found.
And found.
Mm-hmm.
What have you lost?
I lost myself. I lost who I really was. I lost the thoughts of myself. I just lost me, period. And now I feel like I'm found. I'm much more found than I've ever been before in my life. And that's I think what we all are searching for, is to find ourself, find our true self.
Mm-hmm. What does that look like, the true self to you? Like who's Anthony in that true self?
It's so many layers. Like, it can't be named. As a matter of fact, it can't be put into any type of box whatsoever. It's much bigger than what we all, can accredit it to. As a matter of fact, but that's the true self. The true self is eternal. As a matter of fact.
Oh wow!
The true self never ends, even after this body no longer exists. But being able to find that true self with this body is something that is very important to do. Yeah, very important to do. Thank you.
I usually think of it as we're all energy, right? We're all this source of energy that just keep expanding. And the true self is really in that origin of the energy that will just keep expanding. There's no outer limit. There's no limit at all. We're just expansion in all different direction and as much as we can in this lifetime. So I love how you explain that true self. When you think about that true self and that the fact you're constantly expanding and learning and processing, what feelings do you have?
A lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts. Yeah, there's so much that comes along with doing that, because you over and over again find out who you are not, and who you are continuously shows itself to you as you find out who you are not. So these thoughts, these emotions, these feelings that we have are only this long. But the thing is, we hold on to them. We hold on to them and we grasp them with dear life, as a matter of fact. But it's something that should be just let go continuously over and over and over again.
To become limitless.
100%.
Become invincible.
100%.
Right?
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing holding us back. And we're just...
Nothing, not in the sense of you don't exist at all, but nothing in a sense that it's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in the future? Like, what's your next step?
The next step is continuing this book tour. I would like to stay in California, but I do have a sibling in Las Vegas, so maybe I'm going to go to Vegas next. It's a pretty short thing that I'm going to go to Vegas, and I'm going to do some promotion over there. I'm going to be here in San Francisco for maybe about a month, and then I'm going to make a decision on where my next location is going to be, and hopefully I'll do a lot more of these and more podcasts as well. So I'm looking forward to the things to come. So I'm looking forward to promoting this book on this book tour and interviews. That's what's happening in the near future.
I love that. Why don't you tell us what's the title of your book and how can we order a copy?
Yeah, the name of the book is called Balancing Dark with Light, A Journey from Ghetto to God. And you can find that on Amazon, on paperback and ebook. I'm still figuring out how I'm going to do the audio book, but as it stands right now, it's on Amazon, on paperback, and on ebook. And the name of it, once again, is called Balancing Dark with Light, A Journey from Ghetto to God. And God isn't any religion or anything like that. It's something that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about when you purchase the book.
I love it. you know, I don't call God God. I call God the universe. So the universe is within me. It's within you. It's within everyone.
And that name could be interchanged. And also, a journey from ghetto to universe wouldn't have worked as well as a journey from ghetto to God. It doesn't sound good. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that it has some type of resonance to a lot of different people, and hopefully it doesn't deter people because the name God was used. Hopefully it brings more people in to just figure out like from ghetto to God, what does that even mean? And you'll realize that it's something that, you know, is a mind state. You know, being ghetto or being whatever is a mind state. Being God and everything is also a mind state. So if all of us could, you know, just cleanse our mind and let go, then we'll be able to understand, you know, exactly where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, the word immediately came to my mind when you said from ghetto to God is you're a badass.
What?
Yeah, you're a badass, right?
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome because I've 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 had my fair share of crap that I had to go through.
Mm,
Um and I definitely had to be a badass to get through a lot of the different things that I had to go through, especially, you know, growing up from childhood until 19 and then leaving home at 19 years old by myself, not knowing exactly where I was going to go.
yeah.
I was actually selling magazines door to door, just trying to figure out what I was going to do before I ended up moving in with my uncle. And
Mm-hmm.
then wasn't even with him for more than 6 months to a year before I got my own place at 20, 21 years old. So
Yeah.
this whole journey of just, you know, and while I was 20, 21, 22 years old, I was a bouncer at a club. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine being that young, coming from that much chaos inside of a club. So I had to be a badass there too, in a lot of different in a lot of different ways. And it just seemed like it was always something after another. So it was after I was there in Florida for a while, I ended up living in Houston for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I stayed with my uncle for a little while after that because I had a breakup with someone who said they were pregnant with my baby at the time, which is also in the book. And I ended up leaving and going to Houston, and I became an EMT on an ambulance for 4 years while I was out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that has a lot of really touching stories
Yeah.
about a cancer patient who was about 5, 6 years old, who I built a really strong connection with, who I still have the letter from to this day, and that was over 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how I had to take care of many geriatric patients and things like that, and really get as much wisdom from them as possible, and really see, like, you know, some relationships of husband and wife that had been around for 50, 60, 70 years, which was
Right.
inspiring to me at that time because I never could have fathomed, you know, having
Mm-hmm.
a relationship because I always pushed people away, more so than drew them in, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And then, you know, leaving there and having a journey in Korea. I was in Korea for 4 months. That's also in the book. And
Yeah.
being like the only English speaking person there and feeling like you know, a fish out of water
Uh-huh.
or a fish bowl with everybody just looking at me.
Yeah.
It was very overwhelming, and
Yeah.
it has its own fair share of badassness that I had to
Uh-huh.
persevere and get through, until, you know, recently when I met like a good friend of mine, who was very successful real estate agent, who invited me to a party in Beverly Hills, and while I was working at a Chinese restaurant
Mm-hmm.
after being MIA for 5 years because I was a meditation instructor. A meditation instructor who went out and met people and gave seminars and guided people through meditations and things like that. I did
Mm-hmm.
that for 5 years. So I was pretty much under the radar. No one really knew what was going on with me. But to be fair, nobody really knew what was going on with me up until that point anyway. And then
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden coming out and writing this book, it was just, I don't, the inspiration just came out of nowhere. And the inspiration came from just thinking. So, hey, you know, I've gone through all of these different things. I've been able to see all of my faults and things like that. And I know how much it's healed me. I know how much it's allowed me to grow. So if I was able to share that with as many people as possible, maybe that would inspire them to not have to write a book about their things like I did, which is one thing in itself, but to just
Mm-hmm.
really be honest with themselves and really look back on themselves and really deal with all of these traumas, these traumatic incidents that we all have in
Mm-hmm.
one form or another, and deal with those things, then that in itself could actually help make the world a better place. That in itself could, make us more accountable for, and not blame others. And I think that will literally make the world a better place if we just dealt with all of our pains and all of our sorrows and all of our crap that we have going on.
I love those. I couldn't say it better. So from one badass to another badass, Anthony Vaughn.
Michelle, the badass. I see you.
Yes. And thank you so much for coming on to the Coffee Talk today. And Anthony has a book. It's called Balancing Dark with Light, From Ghetto to God. So check out on Amazon and follow Anthony Vaughn. And he has a very compelling, inspiring story. And I am your host. I'm Michelle. And I will see you next time. Thank you, Anthony, for coming.
My pleasure.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. You too. Thanks, everybody. Bye.